Hello, and welcome to the Own Voices Reading Room. I am Neelam Chowdhury, Executive Director of Global Learning Programs for the Center for Global Education at Asia Society. Today, we are honored to have Thanhhà Lại join us for a reading of her debut young adult novel, Butterfly Yellow. The reading will be followed by a discussion about her writing style and motivations in writing the book. Lai is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of Inside Out and Back Again, which she won both a National Book Award and a Newbery Honor. She is also the author of the acclaimed Listen Slowly, and of course the award-winning Butterfly Yellow, which she will debut today. She was born in Vietnam and now lives in New York with her family. Now, without further delay, let's get started with a brief reading of Butterfly Yellow by Thanhhà Lại.
How the immaculate cowboy talks. She imagines his jaw muscles sore, voice box cracked. She hasn't spoken as many words since leaving home. The stench of rotten fish on sun-tough skin, a red line across a pale, thin throat. Hung shakes her head, forbidding the memories. Instead, she concentrates on 2 red caterpillars windblown around the cowboy's mouth. The creatures might be flyaway parts of a mustache. She's not certain. Light accumulates into an orange-red glow at his mouth, offering a hairy sunset as a snack. She arranges the can so it blocks his eyes, but reveals the surprisingly entertaining lower half of his face. He says, "Milk," again, and veers off the highway. She reaffirms the existence of her knife. He parks underneath a scraggly tree, the only shade near a store. "Be right back." 3 concise words without any fat. English at its best. Hung jumps out. Steady earth. If she could, she would walk everywhere. Each step pressed onto solid ground. She squats to the earth, grateful for the raw, warm dust against her palm. She checks to make sure the knife can be withdrawn in one motion. At a picnic table full of splinters, she pulls out a thermos of warm water. Every cell craves it. Her insides awaken. In addition to ginger, she packed squares of salty crackers and an orange, thinking such foods would soothe her stomach. Eating, though, can't be imagined. Not when more time will be spent in this lumbering truck. Not as tormenting as the boat bus, but it still bounces and swerves aplenty. Once her brother is inside her grip, they will share the orange and stories and breaths. She does allow herself to prick the peel. Dots of yes explode in tangy citrus bursts, an orchard in bloom, elevating her mood just so. The cowboy returns carrying a pan and a paper carton with a grinning cow. Ordinary milk after all. Yet, how strange to see a grown man drink nutrients meant for babies. He starts to eat a brown square and must have remembered his manners. "Want some?" Pinch of a gooey cake, so sweet it rakes her throat. She curbs the impulse to make a face, even as he devours what's left in the pan. The cowboy spreads out a crisp map, points here and there while releasing word after word that conjoins head to tail into a long coil of exasperation. Hung hears enough to counter with a sympathetic smile, but it probably releases as a grimace. Best to pretend she can't understand a word. A crunch, the unmistakable watery crispness of celery. He's eating it raw, with nothing else, like it's a fruit or jicama. A plastic bag full of green strips cut and washed. It doesn't seem possible for anyone to eat that much celery. Ba used to saute liver with celery sliced at an angle, but that was during the plump years before her family shredded after the war. He offered her a stick. She blinks in confusion. What kind of a cowboy is he? The ones on screen squared their jaws on dried beef and mounds of beans. Once Clint Eastwood sliced a papaya with a rusty knife, but never was there a hint of celery. He chomps on another stick. "Love these things. They sure keep me regular." She knows the word regular, but its use here puzzles her. Not much about him makes sense. Before she can censor herself, she releases and an English question re-engineered within a Vietnamese pronunciation key. You real cowboy. Leroy's mouth hangs open, half-chomped celery for all the world to see. Good God Almighty, you can talk, he whoops. What she said came out all mangled, but one thing he's got is a good set of ears. Why are you asking if I'm a real cowboy? Of course I am. Just look at me. She blinks at him. Talk slow, balisi. Talk what? Slow? Did you say please? He whistled. A sly one, huh? Never would have taken you on if I knew you could fend for yourself. This is a blessing for sure. Soon as we get to that precious address, that will be the last you see of me. Got it? She taps his shirt pocket. Go to 405 Mesquite. He takes out the index card, the $10 spent. It says here, go to 405 Mesquite Street. Yeah, what I thought. She points to a word. Say again. Say again? Mesquite? Not Mesquite? How'd you get from Mesquite to that? Say again, she taps. Mesquite, Mesquite, this here is it. He points to the twisty, bone-dry tree thereunder, snaps off a branch while avoiding hellish thorns. Why some people think it's fun to gather and pound seeds into flour, he'll never know. When the Comanches and settlers did it, they had no grocery stores. She holds the branch like it's a gift, massages the delicate tear-shaped leaflets between her fingers, shakes a seed pod. Mesquite? Better, but easy on the S, he sighs. Don't tell me I gotta run some kind of pronunciation lesson now. Say again. Mesquite, Mesquite, Mesquite. Let's move it on out before I miss my chance of kissing up to Bruce Ford. While driving, Leroy keeps having to wrangle an unruly map and repeat Mesquite, Street, Amarillo, and Texas until his tongue knots into a lariat loop. Of the many educational and cultural exposures his Yaley parents heaped upon him, Boy Scouts and the ways of knots were at least tolerable. He pretended to be on cattle drives while enduring wilderness survivals. As for the camp for budding mathematicians, biologists, lawyers, doctors, sociologists, tennis players, chess champs, inventors, sculptors, painters, pianists, and more he can't recall just now, let's say he got very good at counting down the days, hours, minutes, seconds, until pickup time. The more the girl talks, the more he gets used to her way of pronouncing things. If he waits, letting the context and syllables melt together, her words reveal themselves. Except he can't get her to stop hissing like a snake roasted alive every time a little S shows up in the middle end of words. He never noticed English swarms with so many darn S's. Starting to wonder how he sounds in Spanish to the real deals. Finally, they turn onto her beloved Mesquite Street. Not much to look at. Grass is yellow and tall, fences rotting or toppled, broken down houses too close together and all needing complete redos. They get to the end of the street and still can't find 405. Leroy panics. More moisture gushes out of his pores. And here he thought he could not flush any more sweat, riding around with no air conditioning like a fool. No music either. She needs so much talking to, he plumb forgot to crank up the radio. He tells himself this torment will be over soon enough and forces an up note. Don't worry none. An address doesn't just up and leave. The girl is blinking like she's about to have a panic attack. He looks away to not get any more involved. He parks and gets out to investigate, all casual, like it's normal as sunshine to misplace an address. She comes out too. It's getting toward late afternoon, still bright, but the air no longer bites. He's got his Texas hat. She's unfolded a contraption that might as well swallow her. You fit that in your backpack? Backpack? He pats her bag. She shakes her head like she doesn't believe him. Cousin, took hat pambarada. Shh, do not tell. This girl is nuts. He's not hanging around long enough to snitch to her cousin's mother about anything, much less a silly hat. There's 401, 403. Where 05 should be standing is a building partly blown away, partly devoured by termites. A crumbling sign says something, and Southern Baptist, the most sorry church Leroy ever saw. 2 bars of wood nailed in an X block the door. No matter, his work is done here, having gobbled up much more than $10 worth of hospitality. Leroy glances at the girl, whose eyebrows are contorted and whose cheeks have drained of color. Right quick, he looks away and gets ready with parting words. Good luck, and you'll be fine, and all that.
Thank you, Thanhhà, for joining us today. I'm honored to be having this conversation with you and enjoyed reading Butterfly Yellow, which I could not put down and describe as absolutely breathtaking. So thank you very much for that.
That's lovely to hear. I'm excited that you're reading it.
It was great. I highly recommend it to everybody. So before we get started on some of our questions, I just wanted to ask you if you could take a moment and comment on why you chose the passage that you chose to read. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that is the passage where I reveal that Hằng actually understands English perfectly fine. She's been going along. She's not speaking. This is her first time venturing out into the Wild West by herself, and she's on a mission. She's going to reclaim her brother. And so she runs into this redhead cowboy wannabe, and at first she's just handing him notes that she's already written out. Take me to this address, and he thinks that she's mute. So he has to help her out of his, Texas hospitality that he's been given this task. And then accidentally, she reveals that she understands. Now, when she speaks English, she's going to speak it in a heavily accented Vietnamese for a reason. She learned English by herself through a grammar book at the end of the war. No one pronounced one word for her. And I'm sure, she was watching spaghetti westerns with her father, but she's forgotten how Clint Eastwood speaks English. So it was just a pivotal moment in letting you know that these two are somehow going to connect, not just through their ability to understand each other's way of speaking, but it will go much deeper later on, and it will be an authentic friendship by the time the novel's done.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that was probably the first time I realized, how deep their friendship was going to be. And the real connection that they started to make with each other. So it was a good moment. Okay, I appreciate that. So let's get started with a couple of questions.
Okay.
At the Center for Global Education at Asia Society, we do a lot of work around helping students understand and consider multiple perspectives. Perspective taking, in our opinion, is one of the best ways to understand people who are not like you, or things that are completely different and foreign to what you are used to. And so you did a remarkable job of this in your, with your main characters, Hằng and Leroy. So how do you focus on voice and perspective in your writing? If you could provide some insight or some tips on that for our viewers.
Well, I just happen to be a voice-driven writer. That means that before I even start writing, I spend years just thinking about how words will land on a page for each character. I am not an omniscient writer in the sense I don't do third person, where you're a writer, you step back and you're a know-it-all and you tell the story. I go away. I, as a writer, does not matter on a page to me. What's much more interesting for me is to slip completely inside the minds of my characters. So in order to write chapters for Leroy and Hằng, I had to just start doing background information on them. I not only know what they wore, where they were born, what they ate, how they think, what their favorite food is, what an orange tastes to each of them, what they like to touch. I know all of that. So that's, I'm so fascinated by how people process language and how do you reveal how someone thinks on a page. So that all comes through voice. So when you're on Leroy's chapter, it's him because he's going to have a Texas twang to him. His language is going to be more slangy. You're going to feel like you're inside a mind of an 18-year-old cowboy wannabe. He's not even a real cowboy. He's going to get half of his idioms incorrect. And that's part of the humor. And then when you're inside Hang's point of view, you're going to get more of a poetic feel. And her English is going to be heavily accented. But when you're in her Vietnamese mind, it's going to be laced with all this poetry that she was brought up with. Where did it come from? From her grandmother. So I have all this in the background before I even start writing. And I'm very interested in writing close thirds, which means you are almost in first person, but you just happen to be doing it in third person. But on any given page, as soon as you open Inside Out, open Butterfly Yellow, I wanted you to be able to tell whose point of view you're in. Nothing drives me cuckoo more than opening a book through multiple points of views, and you have no idea whose brain you're in. Like, who's telling this chapter? So I wanted to be so distinctive that I don't care if you've never even heard of the book. You open it, you're like, Leroy's talking. Hang's talking. Yeah. So with that as a focus, it just becomes a voice-driven story.
Yeah. There were also moments where I thought some of the supporting characters, you were kind of getting in their minds too, which I thought was very interesting as well, because I went in thinking, okay, this is going to have two perspectives, that's it. But then throughout the story, you know, some of the other supporting characters, I started realizing kind of started coming alive too, which I thought brought so much more to the story, even more authenticity to it. Yeah.
Well, there were aspects of for characterization and plot that there was no way to tell it in Hang's or Leroy's point of view. I had to bring in the brother. What did he remember? Hang's not going to know what he remembered, right? He's not even talking to her. So he has to come in. So David, as a grown-up 11-year-old, has to come in. And then I just like Morgan so much that I just threw in a chapter for him, because I'm like, why not? I can do this. And then Mrs. Brown got a chapter, her cousin Angie got a chapter, and at the beginning I had these huge long chapters from the perspective of her uncle, and then that got taken out in editing. They said it was no longer a YA book if I had so many adult points of views. So.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Great. Okay, thank you. So the next question I was wondering a little bit is about the character of Hang. And she is unique in so many ways, you know, very unique story, and just really special in terms of the way you kind of weave in what actually happened to her and how that is impacting her in this story now as we're reading it. And, you know, but her refugee experience, unfortunately, is relatable to many all around the world. So what compelled you to write about Hang in this way? Is there anything that, you know, kind of you said, you know what, I need to write about this character? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, as you said, these refugee stories are unfortunately too familiar to us, right? What happens on the boat, the pirates are real. It's still happening today. And I didn't want to tell that story because literally you can just Google that in 2 seconds and there will be hundreds of stories, starting from, you know, with the Vietnamese and then all the way up to now. It's happening in the Mediterranean Sea. Any number of days you will have a boat out there with refugees on it. So I thought, I don't want to do that. And I didn't want to do it as a journalist because I don't think it's fair for me as an outsider to come in and take the most tragic part of your life and splash it on the front page. Because actually, when I used to be a journalist, I did that. And I felt terrible because then the next day you go on to something else. But then that person lives with that story on the front page. So I thought, well, okay, it's not going to be journalism. So then finally, I started to write fiction. I'm like, okay, I'll do this as a novel. And then I thought, I'm not going to focus on the boat. I'm not going to focus on what happened to her on an island. That will actually be 2 pages in the whole novel. You only need to know almost like an impressionistic painting of what happened to her. What's really interesting to me is having gone through all this, her life isn't over. She's 18 years old. She's got decades to live. How is she going to return to herself, and how is she going to reclaim parts of herself that she really treasured and then go on after that? Well, surprisingly to her, part of that is going to come from this wannabe redhead cowboy that just popped out of nowhere. He's going to help her in ways that she doesn't even understand, and she'll help him too. And I love surprises in life, right? If you put these 2 characters together, when they were born, one in Vietnam and one in Texas or wherever Leroy was born. I think I had him born in New York, and said, okay, when you're 18, you're going to meet up and you become really good friends. They're going to be like, what? It's not going to be possible. But through fiction, you can make it happen, and you can make it happen in a way that's actually really realistic and fun, right? And everyone I know that I really treasure happened just randomly. There was no reason for us to meet, including my husband. You know, why am I married to this man? I'm from Vietnam. He's from upstate New York. I have no idea why we're married. And yet here we are. So it just comes to this whole idea I have of just calm down, let life surprise you. And then you take it and you do what you need to do with it. And I wanted to see Hang heal, right? I wanted to have a little uplift at the end. I couldn't just end it on the boat.
No. Great. I mean, there's definitely the element of surprise in so many moments of the book, and obviously you live that. You love it with what you described, so it definitely comes off the pages. Let's see. Can you talk a little bit about? Oh, here we go. Can you talk about your charity work or the work that you do around Viet Kids? And what motivated you to start that organization? And how can our viewers get involved and learn more?
Well, it's on my website, thanhhalai.com. I've been doing this for 16 years, and it's so simple. When in 2005, I went to Vietnam with a group of surgeons to translate while they did cleft palate surgeries for kids in the countryside. And I want to emphasize that there are two different Vietnams. There are the savvy hipsters in the three major cities, and then there are the kids in the countryside who pretty much are struggling to get to the city. They're still poor, and so we went there, and that's the reason why they didn't get the cleft palate surgeries when they were born. Otherwise, they would have gotten it right at the hospital. So when I was translating for them, I would have a chance to just sit with them and chat either before or after surgery and talk to their parents. And I would say, what do you want? What can I get you to make you feel good right now? And, you know, because I'm so food centric, I'm thinking I'm going to run out and buy a bunch of snacks and I'm going to bring it back and everyone would be really happy. And every single child said, I want a bicycle. Oh. And I said, why do you want a bicycle? And then they explained a bicycle becomes the family van. Because when you go to school on a bicycle, you're taking along 2 or 3 siblings. Or your mother might take you to school, and then she's going to take that bicycle, goes back home, pick up the vegetables that she's been growing, and she's going to go to the market on the bicycle and sell it, and then she'll turn right around and pick you up. I mean, it becomes a van. And I thought, okay, everybody gets a bicycle. And so we've been doing it for 16 years. My liaison is a Buddhist nun whom I met in Vietnam, and then she has hooked up with various temples in Vietnam, and they run these programs where they find the children for me. And for $75, we're able to send, you know, a new bicycle to a child. So last year, with the help of Chandra Wilson on Grey's Anatomy, she happens to be one of my best friends, she supports Viet Kids, and we bought like 150 bicycles, you know, and then we just pass them around. And we also buy scholarships, tuition, and uniforms, everything you need to go to school.
Yeah, that's amazing. This is amazing. Yeah, when I read that on your website, I was like, I think, you know, our audience would love to know a little bit. A lot of our audience, they come to us because we have this idea of global citizenry. And we really like to, you know, talk to kids about that. You know, that your idea, like I just said earlier, about perspective taking. And another big part of that is around taking action. So if you think about something, or if you see a global issue, or if you see something that you think is not right, or an injustice that you are, you know, worried about or frustrated about, then it is our responsibility to do something about it. So I think all of your work, your writing, your work around Viet Kids, it just completely embodies global citizenry. And I'm so excited and thrilled that I got the chance to speak with you today.
Oh, how lovely. That's probably one of the loveliest summations of my work I've ever heard. I appreciate that, Neelam. Thank you.
Absolutely. So it's great meeting you today. Thank you so much. So hang on just a sec. I just want to, again, thank you very much for joining us, sharing your passions, your motivations. Stories about Asian Americans and their experiences are a focus for us here at the Center for Global Education, and Butterfly Yellow exemplifies the type of book that we believe young people should be engaging themselves in. And for our audience, thank you for joining us, and please be sure to visit www.asiasociety.org/education to learn more about our programming for children and families during Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.